Let's start with a brief statement of the facts. The First Amendment, as defined by the United States Constitution, written up in 1787, states that Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of a religion or the practice thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the print, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances. While those are a lot of liberties to defend, I'd like to zero in specifically on the amendment's protection from laws which would abridge the freedom of speech. If a more concise interpretation of the First Amendment would assist in our grasping of how the government could possibly control our voices, I believe Voltaire put it this way: "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." Seems pretty clear. Now, let me lay out a second set of facts which may muddy the waters on a relatively clear and inalienable right our founding fathers gave to us to steward. 4,500 minors commit suicide each year as a direct result of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, according to stopbullying.gov, is defined as when a child, preteen, teen is threatened, harassed, humiliated, embarrassed, or otherwise targeted by another child, preteen, teen, or adult on the internet. There are thousands of websites that a Google search will offer up ending in .gov, .edu, .org. Sites such as the Cornell Law Institute, the American Association of School Counselors, even institutions like Cartoon Network and Facebook, each have support groups and hotlines for the victims of cyberbullying in an attempt to stem the 1 in 10 minors per year who attempt suicide as a direct result of some form of cyberbullying. This is according to the Cyberbully Hotline, an anonymous bullying reporting system which provides solutions to educators and educational institutions to address the abuse of First Amendment rights to harm vulnerable individuals. Now that we've established these two major players, we can at least attempt to grapple with the questions that many surviving parents of cyberbullied children ask themselves, one of which is cyberbullying protected by our First Amendment rights to freedom of speech? In 2012, Georgia middle school student Alex Boston reported to school officials and local police that she was being bullied on the media platform Facebook. She was promptly told that there was nothing they could do about it because the harassment occurred off campus. At the age of 14, Alex and her family filed a lawsuit against the classmates perpetrating the bullying. The classmates did this by creating a fake Facebook profile for Alex, defaming her so intensely and regularly that soon Alex became physically threatened at school. The courts would not take the case because it was determined that the perpetrators indeed had the right to freedom of expression on any platform. The fact that justice was not found in the courts hurt Alex Boston and her family. The events eventually concluded with apologies from the bullies, a donation to charity, and the Facebook profile being taken down. The damage, however, that these students inflicted still follows Alex today. Tracy Norman of Florida was the mother of 12-year-old Rebecca before Rebecca threw herself off the roof of an abandoned factory after being viciously and persistently bullied in person and on social media. Certain posts even encouraged her to end her life. Sharing her plight with school officials only stopped the physical bullying at school while the virtual bullying continued. Tracy's mother filed a lawsuit against the school for not protecting her daughter further, as well as wrongful death lawsuits against the two teens who, she says, virtually tormented her daughter. Neither suits progressed, leaving many unjustifiable actions permissible by the law. While these are just a couple of examples, I think we're beginning to see a pattern emerge. According to the Pew Research Center, 95% of all teens ages 12 through 17 have a social media account. And this was from a survey taken in 2012. Experts estimate that the average age of social media users could be as early as 10 years old. With an increase in social media usage of all platforms, whether it's sharing a picture on Instagram, a video on Snapchat, or words on Facebook, paired with the inexperience and insensitivities of adolescents whose prefrontal cortexes of reason and behavior are not completely developed, you have a correlating increase in cyberbullying. Another pattern, according to nobullying.com, tends to focus on the gender demographic, of which females are 2 times more likely to experience cyberbullying than males. While boys tend to use more physical aggressive tactics for bullying, girls tend to use social media as an emotional tactic, hiding behind profiles and computer screens. The No Bullying website also states a study done by the University of Miami psychologists that subtle and methodical spread of vicious claims and images normalizes the cyberbullying and makes the response and effects of the bullying slow and the repercussions insincere. This is not to say that one gender takes more precedence over the other. It only brings to light the safe zone that the virtual world creates for bullies to enact their harassment on a much viral way. But how do these claims come to a head when it concerns our freedom of speech? One legal battle summarizes the gray area between justice and the protection of rights. In 2011, a 15-year-old student from Albany, New York, pled guilty to creating a Facebook profile containing graphic sexual comments and images from his high school of other students to elicit harm to them. The Albany court system passed a law then banning the electronic communication intended to harass, annoy, threaten, or otherwise inflict emotional harm on another person. The Court of Appeals, however, struck that law down as they deemed it unconstitutional, a violation of the First Amendment. Because of this, the charges against the 15-year-old were dropped, and the case faded from the public eye. What was left was a discourse on the interconnectedness of cyberbullying and our right to the freedom of speech. A dozen states took heed of the ruling in New York and began drafting their own criminal sanctions for cyberbullying, and many more are considering it. Despite the specific court ruling that cyberbullying laws are unconstitutional, Justin Patchen, a co-chair of the Cyberbullying Research Center, is encouraged to press forward with better and more specific legislation to protect the victims of cyberbullying and serve justice to the perpetrators. In a statement after the hearing, he stated that the problem is going to be really tricky writing a law that is comprehensive enough in its coverage of bullying and at the same time pass constitutional muster. The debate is heated on both sides of a blurry line. Some argue that children shouldn't participate in social media world. Of course, this is more of a parenting argument, which cannot be so broadly applied. Others argue that it is the right of anyone using social media to say, or type rather, whatever they want, and it's up to the reader to discern what the appropriate response or lack thereof should be. However, it's too late to turn back the clock. Children are already participating in social media, and children are already dead as a result of the abuse of our First Amendment rights, something our founding fathers could never have accounted for. Didn't anyone ever tell these bullies that if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all? On debate.org, 67% of folks side with the bullies, essentially saying what Voltaire did. Like it or not, these bullies have the right to say whatever they want. While I agree that laws censoring what is said on the internet and in person and in print are completely unconstitutional, I argue that the lack of punishment for libel and slander on the internet cannot be used as an excuse for hiding behind the First Amendment. While we legally obey the letter of the law, I believe the spirit of the law never intended for words to kill to be overlooked by the justice system. The drafting of legislation not to censor but set a precedent for punishing the abuses of our rights ought to seriously be considered by local, state, and federal courts. When we tell children, preteens, teens, and adults that you can harass, blackmail, humiliate, and malign each other without fear of condemnation virtually, and yet conversely, if any of those things happened in reality, they would be caught and reprimanded, then we shouldn't be surprised when cyberbullies of all ages hide behind doctored profiles within the safety of their own homes. It's almost as if that cliched saying ought to change. Instead, saying sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, over time, will kill me.